We inflict violence upon each other as a way to replace what we steal from nature because we've forgotten this old deal that our ancestors signed so long ago. Welcome to NVC Life. I'm Rachelle Lamb, veteran NVC trainer and relationship coach, helping listeners navigate interpersonal conflict and ground more deeply into relational living. Greetings, fellow humans. I'm speaking to you on the day of the pink moon, also known as the flower moon. Depending on where you live, the springtime moon might have different names. For instance, the breaking ice moon from the Algonquin peoples, or the moon when the streams are again navigable, or sugar bush moon from the Dakota people. There's the budding moon of the plants and shrubs from the Tlingit peoples, the moon of the red grass appearing from the Oglala peoples. Other names refer to the reappearance of certain animals, including the moon when the ducks come back from the Lakota peoples and the frog moon from the Cree nations. There's the sucker moon from the Anishinaabe people, noting the time to harvest sucker fish, which return to streams or lake shallows to spawn. According to legend, now is the time when this fish comes back from the spirit world to purify bodies of water and the creatures living in them. As you can hear by the various moon names, the language is relational. You know you are in a web of belonging and relatedness by how the moons are named, reflecting their entanglement with the land and its creatures, as well as the passage of time. This brings me to Earth Day, which was yesterday. Yes, that one day each year where we demonstrate support for environmental protection. Here's the mission statement on the earthday.org website. Earth Day.org's mission is to diversify, educate, and activate the environmental movement worldwide. Growing out of the first Earth Day in 1970, Earth Day is the world's largest recruiter to the environmental movement, working with more than 150,000 partners in over 192 countries to drive positive action for our planet. Our world needs transformational change. It's time for the world to hold sectors accountable for their role in our environmental crisis while also calling for bold, creative, and innovative solutions. This will require action at all levels, from business and investment to city and national government. That's where you come in. As an individual, you yield real power and influence as a consumer, a voter, and a member of a community that can unite for change. Don't underestimate your power. When your voice and your actions are united with thousands or millions of others around the world, we create a movement that is inclusive, impactful, and impossible to ignore. Earth Day can drive a year of energy, enthusiasm, and commitment to create a new plan of action for our planet. Now, I'm probably supposed to feel encouraged by that mission statement, but I don't. I feel disconnected, disheartened, saddened. I'm going to share some excerpts from an interview that was published in the Sun magazine April 2001. Environmentalist and author Derrick Jensen interviewed author Martín Prechtel. The article was titled Saving the Indigenous Soul. As you listen, I invite you to pay attention to what happens inside of you. Whether you think what you're hearing is beautiful, reasonable, unreasonable, ludicrous, woo-woo, unscientific, just notice and listen and notice and listen. Derrick Jensen begins, What is a shaman? Prechtel, shamans are sometimes considered healers or doctors, but really they are people who deal with the tears and holes we create in the net of life. the damage that we all cause in our search for survival. In a sense, all of us, even the most untechnological, spiritual, and benign peoples, are constantly wrecking the world. The question is, how do we respond to that destruction? If we respond as we do in modern culture, by ignoring the spiritual debt that we create just by living, then that debt will come back to bite us hard. But there are other ways to respond. One is to try to repay that debt by giving gifts of beauty and praise to the sacred, to the invisible world that gives us life. Shamans deal with the problems that arise when we forget the relationship that exists between us and the other world that feeds us, or when, for whatever reason, we don't feed the other world in return. All of this may sound strange to modern industrialized people, but for the majority of human history, shamans have simply been a part of ordinary life. They exist all over the world. It seems strange to Westerners now because they have systematically devalued the other world and no longer deal with it as part of their everyday lives. Jensen asks Prechtel about the reciprocal nature of our relationship with life. You have to give a gift to that which gives you life. It's an actual payment in kind. That's the spiritual economy of a village. It's like my old teacher used to say, you sit singing on a little rock in the middle of a pond, and your song makes a ripple that goes out to the shores where the spirits live. When it hits the shore, it sends an echo back toward you. That echo is the spiritual nutrition. When you send out a gift, you send it out in all directions at once, and then it comes back to you from all directions. It's an entangled net so enormous the mind cannot possibly comprehend it. No one knows what's connected to where. Jensen asks, how does this relate to technology? Prechtel, technological inventions take from the earth but give nothing in return. Look at automobiles. They were, in a sense, dreamed up over a period of time with different people adding on to each other's dreams, or, if you prefer, adding on to each other's studies and trials. But all along the way, very little, if anything, was given back to the hungry, invisible divinity that gave people the ability to invent those cars. Now, in a healthy culture, that's where the shamans would come in, because with every invention comes a spiritual debt that must be paid either ritually or else taken out of us in warfare, grief, or depression. Western culture believes that all material is dead, and so there is no debt incurred when human ingenuity removes something from the other world. Consequently, we end up with shopping malls and space shuttles and other examples of advanced technology, while the spirits who give us the ability to make those things are starving, becoming bony and thin, which is one reason why anorexia is such a problem. The young are acting out this image. The universe is in a state of starvation and emotional grief because it has not been given what it needs in the form of ritual food and actual physical gifts. We think we're getting away with something by stealing from the other side, but it all leads to violence. The Greek oracle at Delphi saw this a long time ago and said, "Woe to humans, the invention of steel." Jensen asks, why does this theft lead to violence? Prechtel, though capable of feeding all creation, the spirit is not an omnipotent force, as Christianity would have us believe, but a natural force of great subtlety. When its subtlety is trespassed on by the clumsiness of human greed and conceit, then both human and divine nature are violated and made into hungry, devouring things. We become food for this monster our spiritual amnesia has created. The monster is fed by wars, psychological depression, self-hate, and bad world trade practices that export misery to other places. We inflict violence upon each other as a way to replace what we steal from nature because we've forgotten this old deal that our ancestors signed so long ago. Instead, we psychologize and objectify that relationship as a personal experience or pathology rather than a spiritual obligation. At that point, our approach to spirituality becomes rationalist armoring, a psychology of protection for that part of us that creates the greed monster, which causes us to kill the world and each other. As individuals, we become depressed because the beings of the other world take it out of our emotions. Jensen asks, how so? Prechtel responds, when we no longer maintain a relationship with the spirits have to eat our psyches. And when the spirits are done eating our psyches, they eat our bodies. And when they're done with that, they move on to the people close to us. When you have a culture that has for centuries or longer ignored these relationships, depression becomes a way of life. We try to fix the depression through technology, but that's never going to work, nor will it work to plunder other cultures, nor to kill the planet. All that is just an attempt to not be accountable to the other world. The conversation goes on between Jensen and Prechtel, but I'm going to end it there. What I wanted you to hear is the difference between the Earth Day mission statement and Prechtel's words. How the world is spoken about in radically different ways. Clearly, the way we Westerners live is exploitive, violent, and without any real sense of obligation to what grants us life. I return to this line, Western culture believes that all material is dead, and so there is no debt incurred when human ingenuity removes something from the other world. I think if we were to really take that in, let it sink in, we might wake up to the poverty of our ways, the consequences of our ways, and perhaps take some steps, however small, in seeing the world as she truly is, alive, fully alive. I conclude with a poem I wrote several years ago. Where am I, strange world? I stare at high-resolution screens. My fingers make words appear, blogs, news feeds, emails, Twitters, satellites working around the clock. The digital world must be kept alive. I write about aches and pains, about heartbreak and the end of love. I write about mayhem and loneliness, about lilies, honey, and disappearing bees, about cresting waves and singing stones. I almost believe in this strange world. The propaganda has been so convincing. I rarely stop to ask if any of it is real. I have bills to pay and groceries to buy. How could it be anything but real? But I'm only barely in the world. Lights on, linoleum under my feet. I'm banging at the keyboard at 2 a.m. Before I lose track, tell me, please, which world do I belong to? I can't remember the last time I courted the moon and spoke to wolves, slept near a bubbling brook and rose at dawn, asked the ground what she needed and gave her a jewel from my pouch. When we say here, where is here? Is here the thrumming city that never dims, or the owl's wings silent across the open fields? That we can choose is a dangerous privilege we might wish to reconsider. Thank you for tuning into NVC Life. For future episodes, be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, or YouTube. For free resources or to book a private session with me, head over to RachelleLamb.com. Until the next time, stay sane, grateful, and generous.